But one of the coolest parts of Phaedo is how we see Socrates explain the actual emergence of his line of thinking, which is his philosophy, which is essentially the bedrock of Western thought, Western philosophy. It's almost the case that like all thought before Socrates, in Greece at least, and in the Western canon, was sort of non-scientific, meaning there was this a big realization that had to happen before science could sort of cross the barrier into actually making progress and making real claims about the world that actually have a basis rather than just inventing explanations or causes and effects. So, I mean, a lot of what I'm talking about, we sort of take for granted nowadays, and it seems obvious to us. But we need to acknowledge the fact that for a long time, people didn't really think in the way that we think. And these incredible societies that exist nowadays that we should be so grateful for would not have come about without science. And science requires a certain type of thought. And Socrates, Plato's, that era of philosophy is really what brought about the scientific method and that sort of reasoning. So, Socrates, he tells us his story of how when he was younger, he involved himself in the natural sciences and he was transfixed by these questions of cause and effects, like why does the sun shine? Why does day turn into night and night turn into day? Why do we exist? These larger questions that don't really have actual answers. He was exploring those, but he ultimately began to realize that the answers we were providing for these questions were unsatisfactory. The example that they really nail in on is why is Simnius taller than Sebes? Those are two characters. I have no idea if I'm pronouncing their names correctly. Simnius and Sebes, it's two characters from the story. Why is Simnius taller than Sebes? Well, we actually do have answers for this nowadays, so maybe this isn't a great example, but it's based in genetics, obviously. That's why Simnius would be taller than Sebes. But the point that Socrates makes still stands. And the point is that tallness in and of itself is a quality, a thing. Tallness with a capital T. It is the form itself that is tallness. Same thing with beauty. They go deep into the example with beauty also is a really good example. And he observes that Simnius is taller than Sebes, but Simnius is shorter than Phaedo. So it's the very basic observation that these sorts of things are relative, that tallness is you're only taller than something, you're never just tall. Tall in and of itself doesn't really exist. Something cannot be tall without another thing to be tall in relation to. And the same can be said of beauty. What Socrates says about beauty is that, there's all these fancy explanations about golden ratio and, oh, the colors they used in that painting, or, oh, the cadence matches this rhythm precisely and that rhythm is pleasing to the human ear. All these complicated explanations were never sufficient to Socrates. And his position is that beauty itself is something. And a thing is beautiful if it partakes in beauty. It is a sort of cyclic definition, which, although it isn't really satisfying, the truth is that's really all that can be said. There's no real answer to why something is beautiful. And this is where we get the concept of the world of forms that Plato talks about. And in a moment, I'll explain why the idea is incomplete, but also true at the same time. But this is the world of forms. It states that there are abstract entities like beauty with a capital B, for example, that are out there in the ether somewhere, and objects or paintings or poems that partake in beauty have beauty. And as a small side note, if these kinds of discussions are of interest to you and you want to learn more about genius and what it is, how it can help you, how you can apply it to your life, check out my website. I offer free resources. We can schedule a consultation call if you like, totally for free. I can help you try to curate your genius and apply it to your life. It has a very specific meaning, and there's real serious ramifications of how you can apply this sort of wisdom. So feel free to visit my website and click the link below. Check it out. But so this thing with the forms, the idea of the forms is true in the sense that the world we perceive is the world we inhabit, not the other way around. We all have different ideas of what is beautiful. We might have a dispute about something being beautiful. I might say it's beautiful, you might say it's ugly or not beautiful. But all the same, we certainly know there is some shared understanding that there is a concept called beauty, which means that we like to look at it or we like to hear it. There's something good about being beautiful. And we, at the very least, have some kind of shared understanding of this concept. And we have some agreement as to what it is, even if the things don't necessarily line up perfectly into our shared understandings of beauty. But beauty being precisely a man made thing, something that we perceive, is just our own perception of the world. A scene that's beautiful exists with or without our perception of its beauty. The beauty is a man made invention. It's something that we just see arbitrarily in the world. And even if we agree upon what's beautiful, it's still arbitrary. It's sort of like seeing color. Like something is yellow because it happens to emit a certain wavelength. And we can all see that it's yellow. And there's no disagreement that it's yellow, but it's still just some arbitrary quality that we see out there in the world. And something that's yellow isn't better than something that's blue or something that's green. It's just a category that we've created and classified the world accordingly. And the same can and should be said of beauty. Even though it might not be arbitrary, it might carry some meaning or significance, and there's probably some evolutionary reason why we perceive things to be beautiful. You know, evolutionary, psychologically speaking, there's probably some benefit to beautiful things, and that's why we see things as beautiful. But ultimately, if we're searching for the truth, that's all there is. It's just we see things that are beautiful, and that's what makes them beautiful. That's what the world of forms really is. It's just something all in our brain space. The world of forms doesn't exist outside of our own perception, outside of our own representation. So, from my perspective, anyways, the world of forms is correct, but it's incomplete. But yeah, let me know in the comments if you want to continue the discussion on the world of forms, and if there is anything that we've missed, let me know. Thanks. That's all.